Hello and welcome back to Oaf Culture. I am your host, Handsome Oaf, and today we will be discussing 7 things I most want to see from Bethesda's newly announced Indiana Jones video game. Let's get going. Number 7. Varying environments and unique locations. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb put the player in several different locations. Off the top of my head, I can think of Ceylon, Prague, Istanbul, and China. Each area had a distinct feel. The developers on this game did a great job for the time of differentiating between these areas. I would like Machine Games to double down on this idea. In Emperor's Tomb, I remember the enemies in China being the most unique. I would like to see enemies with different fighting styles more often in this game, along with the other differences that I think we would usually expect, such as unique architecture, music representing the culture of that area, and diverse bystanders, etc. Number 6. I would like to see some more interesting combat balance. The thing about China in Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb was that the enemies were so good at fighting that they made the difficulty of the game spike a ton. Because it was towards the end, it made sense. However, I oftentimes felt like it just wasn't fair, because these guys were pulling out martial arts skills, and I was still the same old Indiana Jones trying to brute force my way through every fight. They were so fast, and I didn't know what else to do but try to get lucky hits in and steal their weapons when I could. This area may have just been too ambitious for this game, because combat generally made sense, but being able to outplay these guys was not really put into the game. It felt like I couldn't stop them from knocking me down, and I just had to get up, try again, and hope the game let me win eventually. The other side of the same coin is, the combat designers of Emperor's Tomb made most fights feel realistic. You are not Batman, and this is not an Arkham game. Indy really doesn't have much at his disposal, so when he does get into fights in the movies, he is having to put in a lot of effort. In Emperor's Tomb, you are encouraged to fight dirty if you can. The normal enemies can do a lot of the same stuff you can. Usually, you were just 2 guys duking it out, and it could really feel like it might go either way sometimes. From a lore perspective, Indy has experience in fist fighting, but the enemies probably do too. It could often feel like an even match against a normal opponent. This is inherently gritty and adds to the experience. I can't shoot him. Will it be him or me, you think as you try again and again to knock him down, just so you can kick him for a little extra damage. If the new game can emulate that without the combat being unfair and unfun, it'll make a big difference to the overall feel of the gameplay. Number 5. The Emperor's Tomb game had hidden collectible artifacts in every level, and a gallery in the main menu where you could look at the artifacts you have found. Of course, this game came out before we had achievements or trophies or anything like that for players to chase. In this new game, I hope there is something like an in-game museum for you to come back home to, and that there is a real incentive, hopefully other than just standard completionism, to collect all the artifacts. It would be really cool if you could bring an artifact home, give it to Marcus, have a little snippet of dialogue with him, and maybe there's a system where you can get money for it and get upgrades, or you can make your museum better by bringing more stuff into it.
That belongs in a museum!
Also, on the subject of collecting items, Emperor's Tomb gave the player the chance to find weapons throughout the levels, and then take them with you. You might find a sword laying around, or take it from an enemy after you deal with him. You would find different kinds of guns as well. This sort of scavenger gameplay really fits the spirit of being Indiana Jones. He doesn't show up with much. He's got his bag, his whip, and his revolver with him. Also his hat. Those are really the only guarantees. He doesn't plan too far ahead. He's thinking on his feet. Picking stuff up along the way makes the game feel alive, and it makes what you do and where you go feel important. Indiana Jones is an action hero who comes in and makes it happen. It really feels like you're the guy who sets a goal and makes it happen when you knock a guy out and take his gun to use on his friends. Number 4. Set pieces, puzzles. These are things that we have had in previous Indiana Jones games, but since the last Indy game, we've had AAA titles improve upon the idea. Uncharted and Tomb Raider both have interesting puzzle rooms. There are even puzzles in the Indiana Jones films that have the same nature. The developers of this game should make a statement by having the best puzzle rooms we've ever seen, along with some unique locations for them to be built around. As far as set pieces go, I'm sure we already expect them to be really big and really cool locations. Lost City kind of vibes is what we usually get from this genre of gaming, and I think this will be no different. I'm not sure that we really have to worry about whether or not this will be included in the game, because it seems like a no-brainer. Hopefully we'll go to a really cool, unique place that has never been shown before in gaming. Number 3, artifacts that ideally haven't been used before, but it doesn't matter as long as they're cool. Indie is no stranger to finding biblical artifacts especially, so maybe they could keep with that tradition. In the last Indie game, Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, we found the staff Moses used to part the Red Sea. Of course, a real Bible guy would tell you that the staff itself wasn't special, but the staff was super powerful because video game. The Holy Grail has been done, the Ark of the Covenant has been done, so maybe they should do Jesus' crown of thorns or something like the Shroud of Turin. Maybe when Jesus was being taken away to be killed and Peter cut the guy's ear off and Jesus put it back on, that guy's ear became special. So you got to dig up that guy's grave and find his ear, which is the only part of him that didn't decompose. And then when you touch it, you can hear conversations that happened in the past. And then you can find out where the crown of thorns ended up, find it, and do something neat with that. That's probably not what's going to happen, but it would be really cool to find something that is sort of universally well known, but hasn't really been used in the media as an ancient artifact that somebody has to find. They need to use that thing and make us understand why it's cool, why it's important, and then make us wonder, why hasn't this been done before? Number 2, it would be easy to make this game a shooter. In fact, Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings had a decent amount of shooting from behind cover, if I remember correctly, but you wouldn't expect an Indiana Jones game to be a shooter. You'd probably expect a good amount of combat, though. Something I will always remember about Emperor's Tomb is the ammo economy in that game. Similarly to the Last of Us series, it's easy to run out of ammo and be forced to resort to other means of defeating enemies in combat. In fact, when I played through Emperor's Tomb a couple years ago, I felt like I had to carefully conserve ammo much more than I did in The Last of Us. Part of the reason for this was that the enemies in Emperor's Tomb can be bullet sponges. I think it would take 2 bullets from Indy's own revolver to down a normal enemy, and you'd rarely find much ammo for that. In Prague, you were able to pick up a Luger pistol, and it would take 3 bullets to eliminate a guy, but it was a little bit easier to get ammo for the Luger. I could go on, but the point is, the combat balance wasn't perfect, but the goal of the developers was to force you to make decisions. Will I try to take this guy with my fists? Can I take 2 of them? How many hits can they get on me before I take them all out? Will it be better to just shoot them? Should I use my stronger weapon with less ammo, or my weaker weapon with more ammo? Also, I might be able to knock this guy out without alerting the enemies further down the path. If I shoot, they will hear me and come this way. Ultimately, I never knew what the next encounter might be like, so I tried to conserve ammo as much as I could, and that made the experience better. If I was able to just play the game like a shooter, it wouldn't have felt like Indiana Jones. It would have felt more like Uncharted. And I love Uncharted, so if I wanted to play it, I would just play Uncharted. Number 1. The rest of these haven't been in any particular order, but this one really is what I want the most. Disguises. Being able to beat a guy up in secret, take his clothes, and walk around amongst the enemy without anyone being the wiser. This wouldn't work all the time, because you're a white guy. What if the enemy knows they don't have any white guys? What will you do? What if they speak a different language? Will you risk it? This could have some RPG dialogue elements put into it. Imagine a menu of responses to a question. The enemy says, "Why are you here and not at your post, evil guard?" You might choose to say, "I had to go to the bathroom." Or, "There's a disturbance that way. Everyone follow me." Then you could try to create some chaos and disappear. Or maybe you would say, "I just wanted to introduce you to my friend Tommy," and then pump the guy full of lead. Maybe that one's a little bit out of character for Indy, but I'm not a writer on this game, so don't worry about it. Now maybe you don't speak the language, or maybe you have your face covered because you are white and they're not, and they think that's suspicious if you get too close to them for too long. Maybe you had the choice between going into the enemy base loudly or trying to sneak in looking like one of them. So you're in disguise, but it doesn't fool them this time because you stick out too much. If the disguise mechanics can be interesting and fluid, that'll be really cool. I'd like it to be an option a lot of the time, but I doubt that it would always be the best choice for the mission, and that's where it gets interesting. There was a level in Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb during which you got to disguise yourself in a Nazi uniform and run around a base under their noses. This was fun, but it just wasn't the kind of game that could use the concept to its fullest potential. You essentially went from point A to point B, and then you were scripted to be discovered, so that you'd have to fight your way out. Now, of course, maybe that sort of thing should happen in this new game, if there's a disguise system, but I think the player will get more agency if they sometimes have a chance to succeed and make it in and out undetected. So those are really the main things that I'm hoping for and looking forward to. I'd say set pieces and puzzles are probably a sure thing. Here's hoping they do whatever it takes to try to beat Tomb Raider and Uncharted at the puzzle and set piece game, though. I'd like to see a new spin on all that stuff. It is exciting to think about a modern-day Indiana Jones game. With modern technology, the developers have a chance to incorporate all sorts of different gameplay types. They can put in a polished gunplay system and not have a situation where, well, we have guns, but it feels clunky to use them. They can have good brawling, shooting, platforming, stealth, and even RPG elements if they want to go that route, instead of having to pick a couple to focus on to polish and let the others be subpar. I'm really excited to get my hands on this game. Hopefully they can get it finished and put it out by the time the new movie comes out, because I'm going to hate having to wait any longer than that. Thanks for watching this video from Oaf Culture. I have been your host, the bug who crawls into Belloc's mouth. R.I.P. to a real one. He melted my heart just like he straight up melted. As a love offering for Belloc's family, feel free to like or comment or subscribe, but your viewership is always enough for me, and Belloc is too dead to care. Thank you for being here, my friend. Have a great rest of your day.